Hello everyone, this is Gary from Fantastic Fundas, and today in this lecture we are going to talk about the Wavell Plan. Like always, here also I would like to give you some background to the Wavell Plan. We know that Britishers were involved in World War II. And we also know that Britishers were losing in this war. So they were suffering the loss. To overcome this loss, they needed support of India. By that I mean they needed support of Indian men serving in the army. And support of Indians could not have been taken without the consent of the Indians, ideally speaking, because there would have been a huge resentment against it had the consent not been from the people of India. So, for the purpose of this consent, some agreement had to be reached. This agreement was shown in the form of a proposal, and the name of this proposal was the Wavell Plan. That is how we reached to the story of the Wavell Plan. Now, we know this thing that Britishers were interested in taking the support of India in the World War. So, to get this support now, we will need to talk to the Indians. And to talk to the Indians, talk to Indian leaders. Now, these leaders are sitting in jail already because they were arrested after the Quit India movement. So the first step that is taken when Wavell Plan is brought to India is the release of the Indian leaders so that talks can be pursued ahead. Now, the one of the important persons to be released over here, it was on 6th of May 1945, 44 rather, when Gandhiji was released on health ground and when he had started doing constructive work. In my last lecture, I said he was released on 5th, it should be read as 6th, though I clarified in the video itself. So, when Gandhi was released, what would Gandhi do? He would not go running to the Britishers, okay, come, let's talk. He would do his own work. But what kind of work he will do here? He will do the constructive work because masses have just fought Quit India movement. You cannot ask the masses again and again to fight. Suppose you have to fight someone. How many times you can gather the masses, the huge army? It takes a lot of resources, management to do that. So it's not possible. So he will get involved in his constructive work. And that's one. And number two, the Congress machinery is organized at this time. Congress machinery is organized, and Congress committees are also found under different names to organize all this activity. And because Congress was had been declared to be illegal after the Quit India movement, and since that time, because work could not be done in the name of the Congress, so new names were brought on. So this was the work being done at that time. Now, these are the two backgrounds you have to keep in mind. Number one background is the need of the British. Number two is the release of the Indian leaders. So this is the background to it. Now we will talk about Wavell Plan over here. Actually, there are a few more things that you need to know over here. Number one among those things is that war was getting serious and Japan was posing a serious threat to the British. And then new Governor General was appointed over here. Instead of the Lord Linlithgow, now we had Lord Wavell to India. Lord Wavell was actually earlier head of the Indian army, so he knew how Indians work, the Indian systems, Indian situation. Now, Britishers uh, had more needs other than the war also, because war is the primary thing. You see, war is the primary thing, but at the same time there were few more things. For example, Britishers were being pressurized by United States of America to get the Indian supported war, because if British lose, Americans were also losing. And we'll discuss about this in the world history lectures rather than here. So you just need to know what was the need of the Britishers. And elections were due in Britain, that those happen. The result of those comes in the July of 1945 in Britain, where Labour Party will win the elections, and the present government would need to do something to prove their worth. Otherwise, there would be a problem. And then Britishers also thought, let's channelize Indians' energy. They are eating our heads. Let's save ourselves from them. So, for this purpose, to channelize for this purpose, Britishers were interested in doing something, and all that resulted in the Wavell Plan. And they released the Indians. Indians came out, started doing their own activity. Now, two steps are here to be noticed. The first step is the introduction of the Wavell Plan. Let me put it here. Number one step is the introduction of Wavell Plan. Once the Wavell Plan is introduced, Wavell Plan. Once this step is introduced, then what will happen? Second would be, it would be discussed with the Indians at the Shimla Conference. Many people often confuse too, and in fact, many people also call Wavell Conference as Shimla. Wavell Plan as Shimla Conference for this very reason only. Okay, now let's see what is this Wavell Plan that was introduced at this time. Okay, now let's do the Wavell Plan. Wavell Plan. Now, in Wavell Plan, many things were introduced. You can just remember as many as you want. Very simple things. For example, what kind of things Americans will have in their mind? You see, the first thing they would want is the Indian support. The British, sorry, I meant the what would Britishers have in their mind? So the first thing that Britishers would like to do is get Indians involved in the war. And for this thing they say that you Indians be ready for the negotiations on the Constitution of India, and this would be done after the war is over. You see, basically they are hanging the carrot in front of Indian eyes, that will give you the constitution if you participate in the war with us. And this would be done, it was again conditional, if all Indian political parties support the British war effort. Okay, so support war, Britishers in war. So that was number one thing that they brought with them. And then there were many other things. Whenever there are being talks, negotiation talks held, Britishers would always give us something in return. And the thing that was given here, they said that all the members of the executive council would be here onwards Indians. Only two members of the executive councils would not be Indians, and those would be the Governor General and the Commander in Chief. These two posts would not be of the Indians. And this council, this reconstructed council, it would function as an interim government after the war within the framework of the 1935 Act. Under this act, they would be controlling the government. Yes, this Governor General over here, he would have veto powers on the working of the Executive Council. Obviously, why would they give absolute control to the Indians here? And not just this, in the ministries, in the portfolios, all portfolios could be held by the Indians also, except for the defense portfolio. Okay, and defense was with the British until power was ultimately transferred to Indians. Yes, once the power is transferred, then the Britishers would definitely come and support of Indians controlling defense also. Okay, and if I talk about portfolios like defense, I have talked about, then there was also to be an Indian member for the foreign affairs in the council. So the word used here is the foreign affair. Okay, so far what we have covered is number one is the war, number two is the executive council. You just remember these two things, rest of the points can be easily generated. For example, in the executive council there would be a governor general, and except for governor general and commander in chief, Indians would be there, right? And then regarding the veto power, the governor general would have veto power. That's number 3 point for you. Number four is the defense portfolios. The defense would be with the Britishers, except for the defense, everything else would be Indian. In the foreign affairs also, a member was introduced. So if points are interconnected and you don't have to remember every point, you just remember the basic 2 points. Rest of the points can be recollected very easily. Now let's see what more points were there regarding this. Now, you know that Britishers had this tendency of dividing the Indians. Okay, let's change the color. See, let's continue the same color. They had this tendency of dividing the people. So in this also, the Wavell Plan had also provisions for dividing the people. And what were those provisions? Number one was that they said they used the term caste Hindus. By this they meant high caste Hindus. The caste Hindus and Muslims, they would get equal representation. Equal representation would be given to high caste Hindus and Muslims. Gandhiji objected to it. He said that you are dividing the country first into Hindus and Muslims, and then on the basis of caste, the Hindus are being divided. So Gandhiji did not like this idea. So this is one way of dividing the people on the basis of Islam, and on the religion, I mean not Islam, and then on the basis of caste. Okay, so this was about the Wavell Plan. Now, if you recall, I just showed you two things. The number one was the introduction of the Wavell Plan. The Wavell Plan I have discussed with you. Now, second thing that I would like to talk to you now is the Shimla Conference. Wavell Plan was introduced. The leaders were invited to Shimla to hold a meeting in the month of June. And what happened in this meeting and who came in this meeting, that we will talk now. Regarding the first question, that who came for this meeting, we are talking about the Shimla Conference. So who came for this meeting, I would suggest that you should look at this video over here. It had all the people. For example, it had Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, it had Gandhi, and it had Jinnah, and so on. Okay, so please watch this video regarding the people who came here.
At Shimla, Indian leaders met to discuss Lord Wavell's solution of the political deadlock. Mr. Gandhi, invited by Lord Wavell for a preliminary discussion, arrives by car and enters the compound of Manaville, residence of his hostess, Rajkumari Amrit Kaur. Huge crowds lined the roadside to cheer Mr. Gandhi on his way to Viceregal Lodge. Britain's soldier viceroy and India's non-violent prophet were to meet for the first time. Before his departure from Bombay, Mr. Gandhi had acclaimed Lord Wavell as a statesman sympathetic to India's aspirations. Shimla's citizens turned out in large numbers to cheer the leaders whose deliberations would mould India's destiny. Mr. Muhammad Ali Jinnah, president of the Muslim League, met the viceroy soon after Mr. Gandhi. On that fateful day, many wondered what stand this brilliant lawyer would take. The atmosphere was charged with expectancy. Master Tara Singh, leader of the warrior Sikhs, goes to meet the private secretary to the Viceroy, Sir Evan Jenkins. B.G. Khair, Bhulabhai Desai, and Ravi Shankar Shukla, congressmen who have taken a prominent part in the country's life, their names well known throughout political India. Next day, India's representatives assembled at Viceregal Lodge for the momentous conference. Rao Bahadur Sivaraj, prominent leader of the scheduled classes. Sir Sadullah, Premier of Assam. Dr. Khan Sahib, Premier of the Northwest Province. Sir Henry Richardson, who represents the European group. Maulana Azad, President of the Indian National Congress. Mr. Bhullabhai Desai, leader of the Congress Party in the Central Assembly, and Pandit Ballabh Pant, ex-Premier of the United Provinces. Mr. Rajgopalacharya, ex-Premier of Madras. CR talks to Captain Wavell, His Excellency's son. On the lovely lawn overlooking the valley, India's leaders exchange greetings. Malik Khizr Hayat Khan's tall figure stood out amongst the 21 men who, under the guidance of Lord Wavell, were assembled at Shimla, determined to end India's political deadlock. Every leader present at Viceregal Lodge echoed the feeling of India's millions: they must not fail. Every press reporter and war correspondent was in town. This was big news. Then Lord and Lady Wavell came out on the lawn and met the delegates to the conference. The Viceroy's approach to the political problem has created a deep and profound impression on all. This man, who had commanded vast armies in the past, who had smashed the Italian military machine in Egypt and Libya, had proved himself a statesman of the world. He had taken the initiative in offering a practical and realistic solution to India's problem. Just before the conference was due to begin, Lord Wavell spoke to the representatives of the world's press and appealed to them to exercise responsibility and a sense of gravity in reporting the conference. Then the historic meeting began.
The question ahead is that what happened at this Shimla conference? What happened? When the meeting began, which you just saw in the video by Gandhi Sir Foundation. First of all, Jinnah started saying that Muslims can be represented only by the Muslim League and Congress has no say in this. Only Muslim League has the right to represent the Muslims in India. So basically that Congress has nothing to do in it. So Jinnah made this demand, representation of the Muslims only by the Muslims. Number two was that Jinnah said that in case of the division of the votes and objection by the Muslim members, there should be a provision that a law can be made, some resolution can be passed only when there is 2/3 majority. Otherwise, that cannot be done. Number two, that Wavell had actually given veto power to the Muslims, according to which if something Muslims felt was not in their interest, they could veto that particular disputed issue. Now, in this background, we can actually conclude that this was the peak time. Actually, peak time, as I discussed in the earlier lecture also, was the breakdown of the Gandhi Jinnah talks. Now, these are not Gandhi Jinnah talks. That is why I call that as the last straw on the camel's back. But this is the final nail in the coffin of the partition, because after this there is no looking back. Muslims openly come out that they are the only representatives of the Muslims in India and Congress is a party of Hindus, whereas all this is false. Congress has had huge Muslim participation in it also. So that is what happened. Such things kept on happening at the Shimla conference. And so in this understanding, now we need to understand, we need to know more about the reactions to the Wavell offer. And Muslim League, what we have done, the Muslim League clear-cut reactions was that they said that all minority members to be Muslims. Earlier there was minority would be there, but not for all Muslims. They're Sikhs, they're Parsis, they are Buddhists. So Muslim League at that time said that only Muslims should be considered as minority for this purpose. And they felt we especially have danger from the Sikhs because they were supporting Congress at that time. Number two, say they said that they expressed their fear that all minorities are similar to the Congress and they are opposing the Muslim League. As a Muslim League was very pious organization, holy cow was the Muslim League. So he asked for the veto, and 2/3 of the power veto should be given to them. Only then some law can be passed which affects their interest. I've already discussed this with you. Number four, they said make Khizr Hayat Khan as the leader. Okay, and so that was their he was made the leader. These were the reactions of the Muslim League. Let us see what were the reactions by the Congress. Congress said they opposed the idea of the Wavell Plan. They said, basically they said, how can you call us merely a Hindu organization when we represent all sections of the society? And we know the reaction of Gandhi also when he said that he is against the use of the word caste Hindus given in the in the Wavell offer. Now the criticism is not just limited to this. There is more criticism. For example, this offer talked about one day freedom would be given, but it gave no guarantee of freedom, no guarantee that Indians would be made free. So no such law was there. No mention of the future constituent assembly. Okay, so constituent assembly would not be there. Now what to be done? So these were the weaknesses of the Wavell offer. So basically, there's a term often used in this context, and the term used over here is Wavell's mistake. So what was the Wavell mistake? His mistake was that he announced the breakdown of the talks on the issue of the representation as proposed by the Muslim League. Okay, because the selection of the Muslim League on the issue that the Congress cannot be representative of the Muslims as per Muslim League. Simply put, the Muslim League was given a sort of a veto power on this basis. Number two is that the Muslim League representation as the sole representative of the Muslim. So that's number one only. That's the only point. This was one of the biggest mistakes of Wavell Plan. Now, Wavell Plan has also been termed by certain people as the breakdown plan. Let's discuss this. That why was it called a breakdown plan? And then we'll also discuss that did Wavell Plan succeed or not. So why was it called a breakdown plan? Actually, Wavell Plan had proposed that in case of the disagreement between all, British would confine themselves to the 6 Pakistan provinces. So basically, if you observe, their policy is to stay in the continent of South Asia as long as possible in the Asian continent. Now, see, they basically would say that we would leave Congress to deal with the India, and 6 Pakistani provinces would be controlled by the Britishers. So that is why the division of the country can be visualized here. So that is why it is being called as breakdown plan. They are visualizing already the partition of the country themselves. Now, one question that has been raised often is that was the failure at Shimla inevitable? Was failure of Wavell Plan at Shimla inevitable? I want you to answer this question in the comment section. Think over it, discuss it with all. That is the best way to remember so many facts. I've already answered this question. If you have heard the lecture so far, you can answer it. There can be a mutual review. I'll also review your answer if need be. So was the failure of the Wavell Plan at Shimla inevitable? That is the question you have to answer here. Now, what happened then? So the breakdown is announced. I'll just make a quick table over here, the flow chart. So the breakdown of the talks is announced. Now, elections happen in England, and in July 1945, Labour Party comes to power, and they want to transfer the power to Indians as soon as possible. They want to do this ASAP, and for this purpose, a cabinet mission is sent. This cabinet mission literally is the death knell of the Wavell Plan. So, if cabinet mission has come, what will Wavell do? So, in other words, it was the end of the Wavell Plan. But what is this cabinet mission? That we will be discussing in the upcoming lecture. Now, before you go, make sure that you did share the lecture on social media. Do share it with your friends. All this is for free for you. You can pay me back by sharing with others. That's only fees I wish to have from you. And if you like the lecture, do not forget to click on the like button. It really encourages me to make more videos and better videos. And if you want the lectures to come in your email box, then you will need to subscribe to us, and that you can do by clicking on this subscribe button over here. That is all, and thank you so much for watching this video.